Hi to everyone. It's Emanuele from Evil Dead Italia. Um, and this evening we are going to interview Nick Bassett, that is um, um, production designer of Ash vs. Evil Dead and Evil Dead Rise. Before starting, I would like to dedicate just a minute to Evil Dead fans that passed away the last week. Dino Lorenzo. He was a very fond fan of the franchise. He was an administrator of Bruce Campbell fan club, and then he supported me and another person in the Bring Back Boomstick campaign. It's a lot of time we didn't hear each other, but I mean it was pretty young, so it's very sad news. Um, I would like just to share with you a link I'm going to send in the comments that regards his family. His family is conducting a fundraiser in order to support the family. This is just a moment. I'm going to share on the screen. Here it is. This is Dino, and nothing more to say. I mean, there is this fundraising. I'm going to put the link in the comments so you can see it. And in case you would like support him, support his family, it would be a nice thing to do. Okay, now without any further ado, let's present our guest, Nick Bassett. And here it is. I'm adding him to the stream. Hello, Nick.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here. It's an honor to have you here. Just to present him, he worked on a lot of stuff, of interesting stuff. I've seen your I given a look to your biography, and you worked on a lot of nice stuff like Avatar. You get even a award for that one from the Art Director Guide, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
then you worked on Spartacus and other interesting projects, obviously on on Ash versus Evil Dead and on Evil Dead Rise. So first of all, could you explain to our audience what is the day-to-day life of a production designer? And I've seen you were an art director too, so it's a completely different role, or it's just a sort of career step before becoming production designer?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. So the difference, I think, is that how I see it, and everyone sees these things differently. But as a production designer, you get more communication, I guess, with the director and the producer. And on television series, you get a lot. You're really working with the producer very directly. Directors will come in as episodic guests or directors for an episode only. So you're very much there from the producer's point of view to represent their budget, essentially, in many ways, to keep everything on track and to work foremost for the producer. On a movie, then you kind of tend to be more teamed up with the director because ultimately you're brought in. It's a slightly different kind of balance. So the day-to-day job is a lot of meetings. That's generally how it works. There's a lot of communication, especially on a show like Ash versus Evil Dead. We were in. There was a meeting circuit that would run almost constantly and almost every day. At any time, there'd be a meeting, whether it was a stunt meeting, script read through, a schedule meeting. These things. As a production designer, you can sometimes avoid some of those day-to-day meetings, but I've always found it best to go to as many as you can, and even though you can sort of bow out and let an art director kind of step in and be your eyes or ears on that process, I think information's the key, and things can go off track quite quickly. So I think that the main difference as a production designer is it's, you know, and I've always been lucky to be able to put my crew together. I've been always hand select the crew I work with. And that's the best thing about the job, really. You go, I want these people. It's sometimes as an art director, you don't get, you know, sometimes the designer will have people in mind they want to bring in that you don't necessarily agree with. But as a production designer, you have the overall say in your crew. And that really is a really amazing thing, because truthfully, you that's the key to your success, really. You know, you surround yourself with good people. But yeah, it goes basically from a day in the life on a TV series is, as I say, meetings and briefing your crew, and really just really good communication. I just constantly, especially when we're in the build phase of something, constantly walk around the sets, constantly engage with the crew, you know, with the makers, and just do as much communication as I can, so that everyone's feeling like part of the same project. And that's something I really enjoy doing, and try and really make a big effort to do, is not sit in my office and work with concept artists and things and isolate myself. I try and just be there physically as much as I can with everyone. And I think that a lot of that comes from having been an art director and realizing how important that is, that people do, you know, all members of our crew will really want to connect with the information from the source. You know, like, we want to know if someone's making something, they really want to be able to talk to you about what you want out of it. And next thing is, you know, you try and bring in the director, and I just always try and close that network as much as I can, so it's as the information's as direct as it can be. So yeah, I mean, generally that's, I don't know if I answered your question. I'll tend to do that. I'll ramble on and realize that I haven't answered your question. But the day and the day-to-day life is you start first thing in the morning. You know, I'm usually not the first person in the office, but there's always people there earlier. And then you tend to find the day just zooms by. It's literally meetings. There's some design work, meetings, budgets. You know, all of those things.
So a lot of organizational stuff.
Yeah, a lot of organization, and I think that's why having been an art director has been really helpful. I know some people come in very much quite early and just production design all the way through, and that's a different approach. But for me, I worked, you know, I did a design course, and then I started at the bottom. I started doing running on a job, and then set dressing, and worked with set decorating department, worked with on-set and standby and all those things, and I felt that was really good for me. Like, personally, I felt like I learned what the industry was about and what everyone's role was. And when you're on set watching the filming, you understand, you know, I did years of being on set on movies as a standby art director or as a standby props. And you just learn so much about how the lighting sets up, you know, how the walls float on a set, and what makes a good set versus a tricky set to shoot in, and that's been really good for me. You know, it's been probably 30 years of doing this industry, so still feel like I'm learning. That I don't think anyone would tell you. I think that's the film industry through and through. You're always learning, and you're always you're always gaining a bit more knowledge that helps you for the next one.
Yeah. That's cool. So I have two questions. The first one, you talked about your crew. So do you mean what kind of crew it is? What professional skill you have access to? I mean, do you mean the prop masters or the concept artists, or different, or let's say junior production designer that do some stuff?
So the art department, the art department encompasses lots of different people. So we'll, you know, as a production designer, my first port of call would be to employ an art director. It's often on a bigger show or a show with more people, local supervising art director. That's your key. For me, that's the key person who I need on immediately, because they're going to be the ones that they're going to be the real nuts and bolts kind of person to help me kind of figure out how we're going to go about that show on a practical level and budgeting level and those things. And I've done lots of that role before. And then you bring on your kind of your coordinators and art directors, prop master, set decorator, and then often greens departments, vehicle department, like a picture vehicles, construction, painters, plasterers. So it ends up being a really big mix of people, and you really hope that you crew. For me, I always hope that, everyone would hope to crew well, that those people will attract good people, because to make a good film or a good show, you really need the best people you can get. And people are attracted to projects, but they're also very much come to it because they like working. Hopefully they like working with me, or they tend to like, that's a big part of the film industry, is the network of people you get to work with. So crewing is the key to success, really, I think. And then if I know I've got a really good team, then I can really put all of that time in with the director or the producer to really try and do my best for them, and that's really what the job is to try and take the script and go, how do we do this best, and that takes a long time. I don't think there's any easy way of doing that. And you kind of run different scenarios and look at the budget, compare it to the idea. I try and come to things from having done a lot of art directing and been in the industry long enough I feel like I try and come with a practical eye as well as a creative eye. Like sometimes you just go, I just got to think of the best idea and we'll figure out how to make it. Often there's not a lot of time, like you're on a ticking clock. So you're like, let's try and cut some of that process down a little bit. So yeah, everyone has a different approach. That my approach is to try and be as pragmatic as I can all the way through, as well as creative. But yeah, I think the two go very much hand in hand. And when I started, I remember working with a designer who said being a production designer or an art director tends to be 10% creative and 90% is logistics, and in a way that sort of it's probably remained quite true, to be honest. Yeah, it was probably right. It's somewhere in there. It's probably a little more creative than that, but there's a lot that comes down to the nuts and bolts of how you're going to do things. So
that's cool. That's cool. So, giving a look to your biography, I see you worked on Star Spartacus. So my question is, that was the first time you get in touch with Mr. Tappert and Mr. Raimi, or you already know them?
No, yeah, so once upon a time, Rob Tappert brought a show called Hercules to New Zealand, and that kind of, to Auckland specifically, and that kind of changed Auckland quite drastically. We'd had a lot of shows here, but that was the one that was big in terms of crew. Like it was a big project. It was employing a lot of people. And then he had Xena after that. I worked a little bit on those shows in the prop making department, and didn't really work full time on any of them. And didn't know Rob, I was just very junior, and but I was very aware of that show was making a massive impact, and ended up doing the Young Hercules show, which happened a few years later. That was sort of a spin-off. Rob he was involved by name, I think, but he wasn't kind of there on the day on that one. That was another producer. And that kind of was one of Ryan Gosling's actually first shows that he was on. So that was kind of cool to see him as a young actor. And then I did, other thing. I worked on some horrors. There was Boogeyman I worked on as an art director with Rob. And Rob's been in the scene here for so long, so we've crossed paths. But it was Ash versus Evil Dead that was, Spartacus was as an art director, supervising art director. And we got on well on that. And then when Ash versus Evil Dead came up, he called me for the job, which was really cool, and kind of the perfect job for me to design. Really, it was exactly what I wanted to do. So came at a very good time, and it was fun.
Cool. That's cool. So I suppose that working on a TV show is really different to work on a movie, on a feature movie. Could you highlight for us the differences in your work between Ash vs Evil Dead and Devil Dead Rise, if there are any? I mean, if there are huge differences, except the long term. I mean,
I think the main, like, to compare those very two specific shows, that Ash vs Evil Dead is, I started as the designer without a director. You know, Sam was on, but he wasn't here, and we were working kind of in isolation in an office. And I knew that that was going to be very much his, like, I knew he was going to be like, that was almost like a little feature film. He was the director and he's the creator. You know, he's a big, huge, he is that franchise. So I knew that was going to be a slightly different experience than doing the series as it ran on. So so that was quite similar to a feature film, I think, actually, because, you know, I talked directly with Sam. He was on early enough that we could, you know, like the trailer set, he was like, I want it to be really big. I want to do this big action sequence in there. And we were having conversations that you would have on a feature film. Going beyond that, once you get to the second episode, the director has a much shorter pre-production. So in actual fact, we had to design all the sets. We were designing ahead of the director arriving. So then once the TV series runs as a series in its kind of normal state, you very much have to make decisions without the director, and that's where I go back to that. That's where you're sort of working with the producer to go, we're planning on building this set, and they go, great, start. Then the director comes on and goes, it's not what I want, perhaps. You know, like sometimes that happens, but it's too late. Like if we didn't start, we wouldn't be ready for you. So that's where it gets quite different, I think, and I think that's probably the thrill of doing a television show, is you very much get to make a lot of decisions as an art department, which working with, but we'll be working with stunts, special effects, other departments all the way through. So it's not like we're just one department, but we would be able to lead the way quite a lot on a TV series. On a film, like Evil Dead Rise, it's like there's no way I would just leap ahead and design the set and build it without, you know, talking with the director. Like, so Lee and I would talk all the way through that, and that's really the main difference, I think, is that you get a lot more time with your director, and you get time to see a rehearsal of a scene, which I think is a really big difference. On Evil Dead Rise, we would rehearse an action sequence, or we would rehearse a moment where Cassie goes to the door and moves furniture and looks through the peephole or something. A scene like that, you would rehearse, and I'd look at the set and go, we need to really pay attention to the finish on this, or, you know, we might even redesign a piece of architecture to be better for that sequence so that it worked better. And you have a little bit more time, a lot more time actually, to consider each frame of the film. On TV series, you tend to build the set not knowing what the shots are going to be. You know, it'd be very rare to know how that set was going to be covered. I tend to build with always in mind that one wall is probably going to go for an action show because it's going to be in the way, so you might feature, but really you don't have much of a clue. So you tend to have to make a lot of decisions, and it's quite frightening sometimes because you're building at a speed without really the information, and you just hope you've made the right decisions. But I think that helps your instinct, you know.
Okay,
so that's the main difference. It's detail and time. I think you get a lot more time on the film.
Okay, so the pacing, even the fact you have a different director instead of just one, substantially. The pacing of
what's it?
And the fact you have a lot of director instead of just one involved, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I think as on a TV show, it's harder to keep a constant look to the show, because sometimes you get a guest director who will go, I want to do this, and they'll sometimes have a different style. So our job would be then to kind of make sure that it's consistent with the rest of the series, and that I think that's really, to me, the success of a TV series is when hopefully it can look very even throughout. Like it looks like one world, one thing, one approach. Not to make that boring, but like it's you're not jarred each episode. And I think yeah, there's probably a couple on Ash versus Evil Dead of eps in season 1 that I was like, that they felt like we've gone from a really beautiful atmosphere into daylight, and some of those things were hard. It wasn't a director decision, but it was a requirement. So yeah, from a design point of view, is like the whole idea is to try and keep it cohesive, and working with different directors, you've got to navigate that quite carefully. Yeah.
Cool. So Evil Dead franchise is a franchise with a lot of legacy. I mean, is a movie that come out in the 80s, and so there are 3 movies, and each movie is this fan faction. I mean, because someone loves more Evil Dead, someone loves more Evil Dead 2. There are the others that love Army of Darkness, and I mean there is even all sort of wars between fandom and stuff like that. But I think you worked very well and delivered a very coherent, let's say, product with Ash vs Evil Dead, because I think there were some kind of issue with MGM to talk directly about Army of Darkness, right? Something like that,
Right.
because it was not completely talked about. I mean, it was indirectly talked about, but not directly. But I think that the Book of the Dead, the classic Evil Dead props are all there. Okay. So I mean, the specifically the Book of the Dead, the Kandarian dagger, the magnifying glass necklace. It's arrives in the 3rd season, if I'm not wrong. So could you tell us how these old and the part of the legacy items were conceived for the show itself? I mean, what kind of choice you need to take? I mean, the Book of the Dead, for example, is very similar to the classic one, while the Kandarian dagger is completely different. Regarding the necklace, the one that Ash give to Linda, and then in the end of the season 3, Ash give to Brandy. We made some study. We noticed that substantially the magnifying glass necklace is 1.5 times bigger than the original ones, because we studied a little bit of it. So we are curious about this. I mean, and there is this comment even that is pretty interesting in this discussion. There is John that asking what were the logistics of doing a new book and dagger design for the show versus the movies, and then again new book for Rise. I keep it easy so you can. Okay. So if you
I'll
would
try
like
and
to
answer you. I'll have a go at answering that. I think with Ash versus Evil Dead, the book was, because you also remember that Rob Tappert was here the whole time. Sam was here for most of the prep. Bruce was there. They all have their opinion on the different films, and where they wanted to go with Ash versus Evil Dead. There was possibly part of it was a little bit to do with the fact that Stars were we were working for Stars for this show. There was comment on, we don't want to. There were always conversations about, well, should it be different or should it be the same? Should it be a version of? There was for copyright reasons, I think, it was even the cabin. I think Sam said it should be a different cabin, shouldn't be the cabin. But I kind of was like, I think it should be the cabin, or else would be, firstly, that felt right to just copy that exactly. And we, so as an art department, we were like, it should just be like the original movie. The Book of the Dead, if we took the original book from Evil Dead 2 one and put it in our show, it didn't feel quite right. It felt a little too comical for a comedy show, that somehow that book fell too much. So we were like, let's try and pare it back a bit. So that book design was, let's make it similar, but just our version slightly, maybe a little nastier than that book cover. And then all of the artwork in it was very much specific to, in many cases, specific to the script. So then we were going to change that, and we changed the handwriting because we had a different artist working on it. And so I think like the Book of the Dead was always going to be, there was never an idea to make it's another book. I think it was more, it's in our kind of simplistic way of looking at it, is Evil Dead 2 was kind of our starting point for the series from a creative point of view as well. And we were going to take that book and just give it literally a facelift to make it different enough, maybe one, for copyright reasons, but two, just to take that. It always felt quite a little more comical, so make it a little more serious. So then when you got Bruce being much more comedic, I think in the Ash versus Evil Dead, it felt like they weren't kind of competing with each other on the same kind of intensity, if that makes sense. The dagger was actually something that Rob Tappert, I remember him coming down to my office one night and going, we need to design a dagger quickly for an episode coming up. And he had, he was more schooled on it than me, obviously. So he was like, weirdly, you could kind of attribute that to him. He was like, it should be, he kind of almost described what he wanted, and we just got the concept artist to do it. So, Rob almost designed that one, although it was a guy called Link who's done a lot of work with me, who made it look cool. But and we went, I think there was a gun shop, the ammunition shop right next to where we were working, our studio, and the prop buyer went over there and bought a bayonet from a rifle, like an old bayonet, and took the blade, the bayonet blade, and we designed it around that. So there was no, he was like, it's different than I guess what I'm saying is the producers have a lot to do with guiding us as an art department through, one is the legal side, and two is just, and then creatively going, let's move away a little. So yeah, I had, walking, this was the first, obviously, Evil Dead project I did, so I was very considerate of and careful to ask all those questions. How close do you want to go to the movie? Where do you want to veer away from it? There were often slightly different opinions at different points of the day on how close we go and how far we move. But the idea was to make a show that sat kind of on its own, had all of the legacy of Evil Dead, the previous movies, but was going to just move into a slightly different territory and different tone. I mean, straight out comedy, really. I think when I think of Ash vs. Evil Dead, it's just every time I see a little bit of it, I kind of laugh at how ludicrous it is, and like in a really fun, good way. But to try and get the tone right was something I think in season one we were still trying to figure out how much comedy is this going to be, how much horror is this going to be. Probably season one, although I think it's a really cool season, was a little up and down kind of in terms of its style. So and in terms of the necklace, it's probably bigger for literally someone said make it bigger. It's probably literally that. And a lot of what we are doing is also interpreting, without making excuses for our team, because everyone's so diligent, that you're working off footage, and some things we might have made a mistake, but truthfully, I think that for the most part, these things are talked about, especially those key props with producers, is let's move away from it, let's do this, let's do that. So you probably find these little moments are quite well considered, often, not always, but yeah, there's a certain amount of rock and roll style to these shows. I think that makes them what they are, and yeah, I don't think it's I think that's the fun of it. Is like the intention's there, the spirit of it's there, but there's a constant reinventing of this, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that you created a new Instagram page. Just a moment, I'm going to share it because it deserves to be shared. Here it is. I mean, with this kind of content, you never get tired of it. I mean, you can see the whole day because each time you post something is something interesting. There is a lot of concept art in here, if I see correctly, but even a lot of sets, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like I'd spent we did 3 seasons of Ash and then Evil Dead Rise, so it's actually been a big part of my career really. And when you work on a show like, especially Ash, when I was actually just looking through my photo, like realizing I've got so many photos firstly on my computer, but you look through and you go, so much work, that gets done that doesn't make the screen. And I think for people, people often ask is questions like you're asking, what's the job of a production designer and things, and really this shows it to me greatly, because it's like there's firstly so much work, and then there's a process to it, and there's a journey that you go on. And I just thought for me, I was like, it should be cool for people to see this, because otherwise what happens? What if my computer crashes or I lose the hard drive? It's kind of a weird thing, but it's so much work and so much of our art department's hard work that I thought it was worth sharing on its own platform, and just so people can kind of see how things evolved. I guess there's on it I talk about, I sort of have images of my trip to Michigan, which was really cool. And I was like, season 1, I'd never been there. I did research on it, obviously, and you tend to, when you're trying to research a place, you've got the internet, you've got maps, you've got a way to do it, but you don't really understand kind of what that place feels like. So it was a conversation at the end of season 1 where I said to Rob, I was like, I really want to go to Michigan. You guys are from there. I've never been there. I think if there's another season, I'd love to go. And he agreed. He was just like, cool, you should go. Here's a book an airline ticket. And I was like, should I meet a location person up there? And he's like, nah, just take a rental car and go on your own road trip. So I went over there for like 8 days, and stopping in LA on the way through and seeing Iggy Pop play for the big kind of screening of Ash vs Evil Dead, the first season. And so that was just like this amazing trip.
This one, right? This one.
Iggy, yeah. So it was just an incredible thing, and then got on a plane and flew to Michigan and got in a rental car, arrived there at midnight, I think, and got in a rental car, found my motel, and then from then just went 8 days driving, looking at everything and sitting and talking to people. And you hear that there's, and that, it's really cool because you even just hear there's an accent difference, and there's specific things that are probably that maybe you don't notice when you live there. It's a bit like people coming to New Zealand, they might not know, you don't know until you arrive that the nuances. So it was just such a cool thing, and I ended up doing it again between season 2 and 3 just to refresh my memory of it. And yeah, very pleased that I got the opportunity for that. So I thought, again, just put it on a page and here's what the journey was. This was my major influence on the show. And then I came back from that trip with just a whole load of photos of this is going to help us make the show a little more authentic, I thought, and a little bit more like not just generic America. This is what I thought it should be. So yeah, I feel really that was a really cool thing for Rob to agree to do, because he could have easily gone forget about it, like, but he realized that there was going to be an authenticity in that.
That's great. And talking about the series, someone asked me, I'm just going to show the comment. What season was your favorite to work on? And was a certain season more challenging or easier?
I think season 1 was probably the. It was a lot of fun, but it was a little harder because we were like, I didn't really know how to. I didn't really know what the show was, probably, to be fair. Like, we were used, like, when you start on a TV show, you're still trying to figure out what the resources might end up being, and where it might end up, and what's practical to do in the studio, and what you've got to, when you're going to go to location, and what's that all going to look like together. Season 2, I feel like I understood that more. Firstly, I'd been to Michigan, had all these great photo references, which was so empowering in many ways. And we were going to build Elk Grove, our version of that. I knew that before I went away. Season 2 was probably the one where I went, I get, this is something. Firstly, let's build everything. Let's build Ash's home. Let's build the street. Let's build all the things we can, and put them in studios that we can light and create atmospheres, and it just really clicked. Obviously we were lucky enough to get the producers to agree to a bigger studio space so we could build the street. That was still a little contentious because it's a huge undertaking for a production to rent a building. It wasn't very tall, but it was a very big open space. So that required a lot of confidence on their part that we were doing the right thing, and that was the most fun, I think, for me. Season 2 was probably where I went, I understand what the show could be, and got a little more confidence to kind of lead the way in terms of, let's build more in studio, let's light it more, we had a really great concept artist join us, Dan Lloyd, who is just really good with those atmospheres, and I share a lot of the concept art because I realize how talented those guys are, or women are, who work with us, and that with a lot of the time a DOP or director will look at those images and that we've created and go, that's the mood I want, and it just keeps reassuring what the show is. So that was a real, I think season 2 we just sort of found a slightly stronger approach, and we're able to steer the show, I think, in a really cool way. And then season 3, I can't remember. Season 3, we had a slightly different writing team, I think. I think that's where it might have changed. I forget now. But tonally, then again, I remember reading the season 3 scripts and going, oh, it's actually changed again. There's a slight change to this season that I hadn't kind of anticipated. So yeah, for me, if it was favorite season, it's season 2. It was just that building the bar and the street and and Ash's house and all that. That was just so much fun. Like, his bedroom was I think doing that bedroom set was just it's just such a fun set piece to build and dress and detail. It was really cool.
I've seen even the Cheryl bedroom somewhere in your page.
Yeah.
It was something. Oh my god, I cannot find it now. I'm going to find it.
I think it's pretty early on somewhere. But
Here it is.
I mean, there's so much better. Like, probably the fun thing about this show, the series, is that you get to, as an art department, you get to contribute so much. Like, you're really we're helping add to the story. Like, there's the script, but yes, so much detail we put in. We make up a whole backstory for these characters as well. There's some of it's in the writing, and a lot of it is what all our team, really cool art directors who dive in with us into it, and it's very, look at all the drawings in there. Like, I'll set a kind of an idea, and then we all contribute to what the finished product will be. So it's very collaborative. Yeah, it's a crazy room, that one. I really loved that set as well.
Yeah, that's great.
She was quite a disturbed person, if you look at that. It's quite a gothic kind of look to it, but yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's say I've noticed even another interesting thing from your Instagram page. This one that Dane Williams was participated to the first drawing of the Necronomicon of the series. Was he either the guy that drew the Necronomicon for Evil Dead 2013, if I'm not wrong?
So Link, so there's two. Yeah, I got that slightly wrong. I think those drawings. Yes, I think you're right. That is right. And then Link came in and worked with us on this one. I don't think he was available. I think that's what happened. It's all pretty long ago now, so I can't quite remember. It was Link who reminded me. But I think those pages were from the original. I don't remember what the conversation was, but I think there was a desire to slightly change it up a little bit from either producing side or from me, and I can't remember entirely. But yeah, Link ended up doing the all of the book for the series and for Evil Dead Rise. So we've worked together for a long time. So yeah, I think it was availability with Tane. I'm not sure what happened there. Funny because I mean, we made that 2013 movie was made in Auckland as well, and obviously Rob was the producer, and I know the production designer, and a lot of people I know worked on it. So there was when we started the series, we were obviously talking to those, everyone was talking still about what that movie did, what we were going to do, and it's a small community here, so it wasn't. Then you kind of get to the process of you've got to get a crew together, and we knew the book was it's almost a full-time job, that designing that book, and the mechanical hand there that you can see is Link sketches as well. So
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean that's the reason I had to start that page, is just so people see these images, because otherwise I don't know what happens to them. I think there's a world where no one sees them, and it just seems such a shame. I think watching, even looking back for myself, to look back at that journey, that creative journey, and go, how do things evolve? And so much of it, there's so much work before the final product. Sometimes you kind of get it right how you want it, sort of almost the first time, and other times it's like the mechanical arm. There was so much work to really make sure Bruce was happy wearing it, and it was going to make some sense, even though it's an incredible feat that Pablo in our story built that hand in a caravan, a trailer thing. But it was like, we looked still at mechanical arms, and we tried to go, let's make it's got to look cool, it's got to be really comfortable, and it's got to have some form of logic. So, but yeah, really a lot of that was to do. That one was heavily with Bruce and Sam. They were all over that prop. So, yeah.
Okay, so still talking about Ash vs Evil Dead. I have this question, but I'm going to show even the material we were talking about. The question is by Brett John. Seeing the art for a possible season 4, was it planned for Ash to go back in time and start or meet the founder of the Night of Sumeria? I'm going to share your website. No, on this. Here we are. We have the concept art for Ash and the Machine.
Yeah, so this was no script, no brief for this. Like, we just were like, what happened here is that season 3 had finished, and they were, the idea was to hopefully do another season. So we, talking with Rob, Oh, well, we in season 3 with this. Literally, we're in a kind of dystopian world. Really, we don't see much of it, or we hint at it. So we were like, where would it go beyond that? And these were literally, this is just the art department jamming on ideas. Like there was very little. There was talk of robots, and it was actually, I think Rob was like, it should be like a kind of a cool Grace Jones type look to these. Like he was just really looking for what could we do. None of this was ever. This is very unofficial stuff, really, and I just thought it was super cool, and that again, like the series got cancelled, and we were like,
Sadly, yes.
Kind of cool that people see these images and go, oh, maybe they're. It's pretty crazy. Like and again, one. It was just, I think we were looking for ideas of like, where could you go with it? None of this based on, this wasn't particularly Sam and Rob going, it has to be this. It was just have a go at some ideas. So again, yeah, you could see these as a sketchbook of random ideas rather than anything else. But we did personally, I like the idea of it going to Detroit and being more urban like that. I thought that would have been cool, and yeah. But yeah, truthfully, that they're just sketches of brainstorming is probably the way to go. I based some of them on places I'd seen. I thought it'd be cool if you're in the old Packard factory or something, building battle deltas. Sort of some things like that, and then upgraded Ash's bedroom, sort of like it's been presented for him. But again, like not really, just jamming on ideas and yeah, and I think Stars. I don't know the story at all, but I suspect they'd probably gone the shows getting to. I think it was, I don't know, speak out of turn, but it felt like it was getting a little expensive and probably if we were showing them images like that, you might go, it's going to get more expensive. So, but yeah, I don't know the business side of it. All I know is someone said, do some cool, have a go at season 4. And that was the result of it. Very unfinished work. But I thought, again, I think it's cool that people see things like this and kind of just see that the people making these shows care about them. Like that there's a lot of thinking that goes into it on that kind of just basic creative level. So
however, yes, it's a very cool work. I mean, I can see you were very passionate in bringing this up. I mean, I can feel the passion in this kind of
yeah, it was like kind of like it was kind of like trying to make something that you went, no one's seen this version, and when you talk about Army of Darkness, it was an extremely bold show. So the franchise has the ability to go anywhere, I think. And again, I won't get into any of the speculation about what the show will be, because I'm not. I only got employed to do these shows. I'm not part of the overall franchise design or anything, but I see that you see the potential for it to go anywhere, and I think that's kind of what we all hope, is that if there's another film or something, maybe some of these ideas will happen and it'll turn into a completely different thing, or not. But yeah, it's while you're on them, while you're working on it, it's exciting, and yeah, it's a cool franchise to be part of.
Cool. So, when you were asked to participate to Evil Dead Rise, it was a natural decision to take part, or you were called to. How does it start? The process to join a new movie. And
that one, yeah, Rob was keen to use me on it. I think. Yeah, he obviously, Lee. I don't even know why it came to. I think Rob brought it to New Zealand. He was wanting to bring it, and again, these shows going to happen whenever you have your first call. There's usually a little bit of a lag before the production actually kicks in and happens. So Rob was just like, "Do you want to talk to Lee? Are you interested?" in it. I read the script, talked to Lee, and was really keen. And we had I think it was just because of the time difference. He was in Ireland, and I think I spoke to him pretty late one night after work, and I was working on Sweet Tooth at the time, I think, and was really enjoying working on Sweet Tooth too. So this film, while I wanted to do it, there was slightly a worry that I might not be able to do another season of Sweet Tooth, which when you're actually in the film industry, consistency of work is the key to survival, really. So to turn down a series is a great provider of kind of work and employs a lot of the crew I like working with. And so this film came up, and I was like, well, I better be careful I don't say no to another season of Sweet Tooth. But of course, I wanted to do it. So I was like, I really want to work on this. I want to make it work. And luckily, Lee and I got on well, I think, from those initial calls. And, he's just such a passionate person about, firstly, he's a Evil Dead fan, as well as a director, producer who was going to make this great new movie. So yeah, we had a really cool conversation. I think probably having done Ash vs. Evil Dead was, it was going to go one of two ways. He was either going to say, I want something completely different, you're not the right guy, or he was going to say, that's cool, you've done that, that's going to be helpful. And I think there was probably a bit of both. I think it kind of worked that having done the series, I already knew so much. So I was already so schooled up on the franchise, which is, that was helpful. It was definitely a helpful thing. And that I think he said in his interviews that he really liked Evil Dead 2. I think he calls that his favorite of the franchise. So I might be wrong. I don't want to misquote. And then for me, he said even to me. So yeah. And I think tonally that I would agree with that. That's the one that I saw and struck me strongly as a younger person. And so yeah, we were like, that's really where we're in that zone. So yeah, creatively, I think we just sort of found a good place to be. So that's kind of how it started. And then I remember having a little bit of a debate with myself about whether I should turn down a TV series that was going to give me years of work versus a film. Timing wise, it ended up just falling into place and being perfect. We had a gap from Sweet Tooth, did this film, and then went back to season 2 of that one. So it was absolutely perfect. And super glad I did. It would have been a horrible thing to not do the Evil Dead Rise film and watch someone else do it, because I would have been kicking myself.
Cool. And I've seen a lot of, let's say, concept art for the high-rise building for Evil Dead Rise. And now, yesterday, I noticed this on Lee Cronin Twitter. This one, I'm going to share with you. And it's pretty fun to see that the real building is really short.
Yeah.
Respect to the one we see. So it's all digital, or I mean, did you use this one for the?
Yeah. So we that building was fine. I mean, when you read the script, you go, this film's all really about that building and the apartment. You hardly ever see the outside in the film. You see the exterior. Oh, look at that! Yeah, he's got a little bit of video there. You don't see a lot of the building from the outside in the film, but there are some key moments. We shot them on location and used that building as the lower levels. I think 4 levels. It's 4 levels high. We we put doors in like it was an old bank. But the building is actually empty and was under reconstruction. It's got some earthquake issues or something or other. Ironically, because of it's sort of an old brick building, and it used to be a school. It was a school. It was many things, but it sat empty, and we were like, "This is it." You know, we actually scouted. I was looking the other day through files, and there's probably 100 other locations that we looked at because we were like, let's just look everywhere in Auckland. There might be a better building, but it was this one that made the most sense. And I was the longest story of that is I found when I was doing a TV commercial in the city before I'd read Evil Dead Rise, and we're doing this TV commercial, and we ended up that the production manager took me to this location, and he said we thought this would be good for this ad, because they'd done a bit of scouting before it came on, and I caught that building caught my eye, even though we were doing the TV commercial, completely different product. That building, I was like, that could actually work for Evil Dead Rise. So it was always a big contender, and then we scouted everywhere, and I got our concept artist Al Gillies to do a sketch of it, and I think we presented that to Lee, and he was, as soon as he arrived in Auckland, we took him there straight away, and everything around that building is kind of wrong for the film. Like everything behind the camera, there's a building right behind it. The street's kind of blocked off and cobbled, and it's not right. But we were able. I was at the video. Yeah, I can hear sound.
Yeah.
But we realized that it would work for us. So that was a really good combination of a concept artist able to sell an idea. You know, like if without a really nice concept art, I mean, Lee's got a good imagination, but that concept art is reassuring for everyone. It's like they go, if it can look like that, then great. Let's use it. But yeah, the power of good concept art really is what that's about. And also just using your imagination. I think when you shoot a film or TV show in Auckland or wherever you're not, you're meant to be in, we're constantly making shows that are set in the United States or somewhere else or UK or something. So you've always got to use your imagination as to how to utilize what you have, and always having something real to ground it is always very helpful, and became the basis for many things. So yeah, that was a cool building to find. But yeah, then we scanned that building, flew a drone over it and scanned the building, gave that to our set designers, and I worked with them. One of them was an architect. He spent a lot of time working out how to make the additional levels of that feel right for that building, and I think he did a great job. Then gave that to the VFX department, who did all this amazing finishing work on it, and the vines and those things were all really really quite tricky stuff to do well. And I thought that came up really great.
And in regards to the internal, they were almost on set. I mean, I've seen a lot of pictures and videos of the internals that were built inside the set. Or not.
So,
I mean,
oh, sorry, the set build side of it. Do you mean
the inside of the building?
Yeah. So that we use, like,
I don't know, this one, for example. No, just this one. I remember stuff like this one.
Yeah.
Or this.
Yeah. So the only real thing about that building are the bottom 4 levels, and we shot the exterior. We weren't able to shoot inside that building, so we built everything else. Was built the corridor, the elevator, the apartment, the crypt set, the parking lot was a set as well, and the cabin and those. So we ended up, I think we shot like maybe 5 days on location in total, including the cabin and the lake. One night we shot one night at the outside of the apartment, and then one night shooting the kind of approach. There's a kind of a flyover freeway as you go in towards the apartment, and then we built everything else. So I mean, that was really fun. We were like having, again, go back to Ash vs Evil Dead and go, we built to me the most successful look of that show was when we were in the studio with lit, it was lit and atmospheric, and we were able to do that on this film. So yeah, the apartment was the next big. Before Lee arrived, we were already working on the layout of the apartment and having conversations with him via Zoom, and I'd just do some SketchUp kind of drawings and show him, and he'd be like, yeah, it's cool, but it's not quite right. And like, it was really collaborative to get the layout and how he saw the scripts, where each person was in relation to each other for moments in the movie. And so that was a real puzzle to figure out the layout of that apartment. It's a really simple set in the end, but where the bedrooms are, where the kitchen is in relation to the hallway, and these things, they really, the details that you need to work with the director on. If we made an assumption and just built that set, it would be unlikely that it worked as well as collaborating was made the layout work for Lee. And then just that's their mechanics. There's so much work in just that phase of it, just checking you've got it all right. Frozen, I think. You're back. I lost you for a sec. Hello. Hello. Have I got you?
Here I am. My connection got wild for
That's right.
some seconds. Never happened to me, but it's freed.
No worries. I think we're just talking about the apartment and the layout and working in the collaboration, and that was really it.
And so before starting the live, we talked about this. Is a very nice details that come out with just some pics, because if I watched again the movie and I cannot notice this detail because probably the camera is too fast for notice this, but in the picture that were distributed before the movies come out, this is pretty evident. I'm talking about hoping that the connection doesn't miss me anymore. I'm talking about this one. So I'm going to zoom it because okay. So the thing that you can see here, I cannot see anymore. I cannot find it. Okay, if you read here, there is a Liz and something more underneath. So if you can explain us the meaning of this inscription on the chainsaw.
Well, the chainsaw was very much a combination of Lee and Elise, who's our props master, discussing what the chainsaw should look like. Lee going, I don't want a red chainsaw. The color, I don't know who came up with the idea, but the idea was to paint it the same color as the Delta from the original classic Delta from Evil Dead, the Sam's Delta, or his original car. The inscription, I think that we were like, I think the conversation went, let's give it some character and personality. I actually wanted to call it Bruce. I thought that would have been funny, but no one else liked that idea. I think 100% of people didn't like that idea, but I thought it was funny to say that Bruce was in the film. But that fell flat. At least then I think Lee was like, just put you on it, scratch your name on it. And then I think somewhere on it, I think it also has Lee Cronin or LC initials and maybe his date of birth, something like that. I can't tell from that one. I think I did post a picture of the production artwork for that actually, which describes it slightly better. I could always dig out a photo of that, but they were the conversations were not about it was really just, I think it was like, it's got to look like it's a beat up thing, so let's scratch something into it. And and so Lisa's name got put in there, and then I think Lee went, I want to be on it as well. So I think he put his initials on there as well. That's really all I know about that. Like that's the detail of Lee as well. He's always, he would never let a prop like that go by without having a say in it, and that's exactly how it should be for a film like this. It's like the more collaboration and again, go back to the difference between a TV show and a feature film is there's fewer frames. You're doing you're very concentrating on one very specific shot, so you get a little more time to finesse these things. But still, that said, we're always under time restraints. But that's kind of what I know about that. And again, to go back to the art department is like I employ these people, our team, because they're great at what they do, and we all talk with, in a film like this, the props master will talk directly, and in most films actually will directly with the director, and really work with their team to bring these things to life. So the main thing for me is just to make sure it's cohesive and we've thought about everything. But there's some within that. We have set decorators and prop masters who are very much dealing with fine details like this all the time.
So thank you for these details, and kudos to Elise that made understanding work. I mean, the props in Evil Dead Rise are really cool. I don't know how many people work on the props, but I think that they were.
The props. The props. The cool thing about this movie is it's quite a small film, really. Like Evil Dead movies are generally not. They don't have huge budgets or anything. So the team's really quite small, and we have a props making. The props were made mainly on location. As the studio, we have our big warehouse that we built all these sets, and it wasn't a soundstage, it was just a big warehouse. We had workshops attached to it, so all of our crew were on one site. So the props were made, I think all of them, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty much sure all of them were made there. The book, everything was made. We use outworkers, but we have our own little props team, so we're very clever prop makers, and few of them, like only a couple of full-time prop makers. So they're literally right next door to the studio, so we'll be filming and then they can kind of come in during a break and show Lee the book as it's coming along, or meet after work and have a look at how the sculpt is going on, and during prep, and a lot of them were being made as we were filming. We're still making the props, so very very direct communication with the director, and very unique to work that closely as a group. So that's the fun of a film of this scale. You're very much all on one team. It's not being farmed out to different makers and things. It's like the people making the movie are right there on site. It's pretty cool.
Okay, I have just one last question before leave you to go. And so the question is, regards Evil Dead Rise, if you have a memory of the toughest moment during I mean, during the movies, when you're creating the movies, or the best moment for you? I mean, if you have any recalls of,
Yeah,
or I mean,
yeah. I think that the fun part about that film is it sort of all it felt like it all came together very easily. Like it was hard work, but I felt like everything happened for the right reason. The fun parts were, I mean, the cabin was a really fun thing to do. I didn't think we'd find that lake location so close to Auckland. We found it, and Lee loved it. The original idea was to shoot that in Ireland as part of the kind of the co-production type style for this film. And then it was kind of like, no, we're going to have to do the cabin here. So I'd put the whole cabin out of my mind. It's like, that's going to be shot 6 months time, a year away. It felt like miles away. And then quickly it came up that we're going to build it. So I was really happy with how that all turned out. It was, we scouted everywhere. We found the lake. We went there. I was worried he was going to say it's not right. He loved it. We built the jetty there. We blocked it all out. It was really cool. It all faced the right way. Like a lot of things just fell into place really brilliantly. Like that, where we could build this jetty was exactly, right place for the DOP for lighting. And then we found a little spot for the cabin and agreed that this unusual setting was quite cool for the opening. And so I think, yeah, the positives of it was it was just a really good collaboration of and things like, I think even the parking lot building, I was really pleased that we scouted everywhere to find a place we could shoot that, and then we built it. So the successes were really like every decision we made turned out to be right. And then COVID shut us down again. We had a major lockdown in Auckland, so we stopped for a while. Having all those sets in the studio meant that we could stop. We weren't relying on any locations for anything anymore. We could stop. Lee had a little bit more time to kind of refine his finale of the film. And then, so this kind of essentially a bad thing, this lockdown, turned out to be a really fortuitous thing, and we ended up with slightly different, a slightly different finale, and all these things got better. So yeah, I mean, even the bad things turned into good things, and I think it was just a great experience. Yeah, it was very pleased with how it all turned out, and very, very pleased with the process.
Okay, I thank you so much for your participation to this live stream, for your kindness in replying all these questions. We hope as fans that you are going to be involved in the next Evil Dead installments. I mean, movies, in case of TV series or animated series that someone rumored about. We don't know at the moment that is going to happen, but we hope that you will be involved, because you are becoming part of the legacy of the franchise. I mean,
thank you. Yeah,
you
that's very
participated
kind.
to two major hit of the franchise. So I mean, you deserve to be there.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to. Hopefully, I get invited back, and and I know that there's all rumors about more films and things, and I certainly feel that there'll be more movies, and yeah, I'd love to be involved. It's been great, and thank you for inviting me on. It's been cool to talk about it.
So I'm going to close the live. Thank you very much, and bye to anyone.
Hey, see you later. Thank you.